I think I have invented a new breakfast treat. It's a little bit weird, but it's really tasty. Here I have everything out for my leftover oatmeal scramble. I've got my leftover oatmeal. I've got my butter, an egg, my wild blueberry spread, and my granola to top it all off. So turn on the pan. I never cook on 5. I usually cook on 3 or 2. It's like probably, I don't know, however much butter you want. Looks like maybe not quite a tablespoon. I keep my butter in a plastic bag because the foil wrapper makes black marks on my fridge. The induction burner is a little bit more like a gas range in that it heats really, really fast. It's more instantaneous than any other electric burner. Okay, so I'm just gonna smush this up. Ooh, it's already smelling good with that butter. Okay, next I'm going to crack an egg. Oops. And just scramble that in. Doesn't look like much yet. Doesn't ever actually look like much. But once the egg is scrambled in, it is much more cohesive. Okay. And then I just let that cook. I originally thought that this would be like a pancake, that the egg would hold the oats together, but it doesn't. So this is now a leftover oatmeal scramble. A couple of tips when cooking with your cast iron. Use a metal spatula and scrape it. Do not be afraid to scrape your cast iron. It actually helps with the finish on the cast iron. Another tip is to make sure that your pan is good and hot before you add your food, otherwise it's going to stick. If your pan is hot and you use the appropriate amount of fat in your cooking, you're going to have, I think, as good as a non-stick pan without the chemicals. If you've seen any of my cooking shows before, you know that one of my big tips is to use a silicone spatula to finish everything. So I am taking the spatula, should have maybe gotten the bigger one out, but and getting all of the oatmeal out of the jar so that that doesn't go into my gray tank. My biggest tip for cast iron cooking is to not buy a new cast iron pan. Go to a flea market and get a good old Griswold. They're not super expensive and they are so much better. The new ones, like the Lodge, have a pebbly surface and they're pre-treated with who knows what. The old Griswold pans have a very smooth surface. The only thing is with buying an old one is that you want to make sure that that it's flat on the bottom, because they can warp over time if someone's mistreated it. So you just want to have a flat surface wherever the flea market is, the table that it's on or whatever, and just make sure that it doesn't wobble at all. And there are tons of guides online as far as how to treat cast iron, how to reclaim a cast iron pan. If you find an old rusty one somewhere and it looks like it is ruined, check online and see if you can follow the directions to reclaim it, because an old cast iron pan is 100 times better than a new one. Once it's done, you can brown it or not brown it, but just make sure that the egg is cooked. Then turn off the induction burner and the pan will retain some heat. So you can continue and do some carryover cooking. Get all the bits off of the spatula if you can. Maybe even lick it, because you know, it's Vanlife. Use your silicone spatula. I'm going to leave that out because I'm going to use it to clean the pan. Next, add some organic wild blueberry spread. So I eat directly out of the pan because it's just me, and there's no reason to get another plate dirty or a bowl or anything. But when you're doing that, when you're using something like this fruit spread that's a little acidic, you want to try and make sure that the fruit spread doesn't come into contact with the pan for very long. So you want to keep it on top of your oats. I like to top it with my favorite granola, which is the Nourishing Kitchen's sprouted and grain-free granola. This one's the hazelnut raisin. It also comes in almond. After scraping all the food bits out of my pan, it just required a quick wipe out with a damp cloth. No soap. You don't want to use soap with your cast iron pan. And because the pan was still warm, I was able to easily add just a tiny bit of coconut oil to the surface. And back when I lived in a house, I felted a handle for it. And I felted so felting is just, what I did was I crocheted in 100% wool a really large trivet and then washed it in hot water, and it shrinks down. And so it's really thick, and so this is what I use to put my pan on my lap while I'm eating. There's my new breakfast sensation, leftover oatmeal scramble. Don't forget, you heard it here first. I don't know if this is gonna catch on at all. It's really tasty. I've actually made extra oatmeal on purpose just to have this. It reminds me a little bit of French toast because I put cinnamon and vanilla in my oatmeal when I cook it, and then when I add the egg it smells like French toast to me without the bread, which I personally cannot eat. This is Joni with TheGalavan. Enjoy your journey.